And congratulations on your very impressive win in your constituency during the election.
Thank you very much.
Yes, that was Asebu, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, Abra Asebu.
That's right. That's right. Congratulations once again.
Thank you.
All right then. So, work, began on transition just yesterday, and already some interesting details for our consideration. Let's start with the issue of employment. You talked about some jobs that seem to be on the table at the last minute. What can you tell us about these jobs? Which sectors are they in?
Well, thank you. Let me indicate that the meeting itself was quite cordial. It was carried out in another sphere of mutual respect and cordiality. The tone was fixed by the president and the president-elect when they inaugurated the committee and impressed upon us to work in the national interest and put partisanship aside.
Right.
In accordance with the Transition Act 2012, 3 subcommittees were inaugurated. The first one is the inauguration subcommittee. I'm sure you are gearing up for the 7th January inauguration of the president-elect. Well, the committee has to work on that. So a subcommittee was set up to plan the events of that day, and they have been tasked with getting to work immediately to ensure that we have a smooth inauguration. Then a government machinery subcommittee, which basically has the responsibility to coordinate and execute the handing over of the machinery of government, which involves ministries, departments, and agencies, and the civil service was also put in place. And they have also been charged with the responsibility of ensuring that this is done within a reasonable time, leading up to the swearing-in on 7th January 2025. And then there's a presidency subcommittee, which essentially has the mandate to ensure that all assets and liabilities of the presidency, the vice presidency, ministries, departments, agencies, and other things are handed over in a coordinated and organized manner to the incoming government. So these committees were inaugurated yesterday. Now, the Transition Act makes provision for the setting up of other committees as and when they are deemed necessary by the transition team. So, as and when it becomes necessary, these teams will be set up and we will update you accordingly.
Right.
But regarding the question that you asked about some last-minute maneuverings in various MDAs, yes, it has come to our attention that in quite a number of state agencies, some last-minute recruitments are going on. And these recruitments are being done in a manner that appears to have partisan coloration. In other words, MPP supporters and members are being rammed through the system to gain employment just before their party leaves power. For instance, we have heard that in GRA alone, over 700 backdated appointment letters have been issued. Now, the people who have been issued with these letters, we are told, have not gone through any credible appointment process. They have not submitted applications for employment. They have not been duly interviewed. They have not even gone through mandatory medicals. And yet, they have received backdated appointment letters, making them employees of GRA. We do know of similar happenings in the Bank of Ghana, where about 150 people are being issued appointment letters, and in various other places. Now, this is highly irregular. In addition to this, we have heard of payments of large amounts of money to some shadowy entities who are supposed to have done business with some SOEs. For instance, we do know that the Electricity Company of Ghana is on the verge of paying about 240 million Ghana cedis to an entity called Haptel. Now, if this payment was being done to an IPP or being made to an IPP under the cash waterfall mechanism, one could understand because of the nature of the job that they do and how critical it is to keeping the lights on. But this is being paid to a vendor whose services are yet unclear. And given the large amounts of money involved, one would have thought that the government would be minded to raise this matter with the incoming government so that some consensus or common ground is achieved on the matter. before they proceed. Now, I say this because in 2016, I'm sure you are quite aware of this. Mr. Osakmafu, who appeared to be who was then the co-chairperson of the Transition Committee, wrote a letter to the outgoing government insisting that all recruitments, all payments, or all transactions that are likely to have significant fiscal impact on the incoming administration must be done only with the explicit consent of the incoming government. So I would have thought that having set this precedence, the NPP itself will be minded to follow suit and act in a manner that keeps faith with the principle that they set, with the principle that they lay down. But it does appear that they are unwilling to comply with their own precedents, and therefore are doing things on the blind side of the incoming government, and are binding the incoming government to payments that may prove detrimental to our fiscal position when we take over. Again, when you employ people, what you are essentially doing is that you are imposing personnel on an incoming administration at the last minute. As to whether or not these appointments fit into the overall plan and strategy of the incoming government is another matter. But it must be done only with the buy-in, approval, and agreement of the incoming government, because it is the incoming government that will bear responsibility for paying these people and even allocating them responsibilities within the MDAs that they are supposed to have been employed. So these are extremely concerning matters, and we raised this forcefully at the meeting yesterday. Eventually, it was agreed that the matter will be revisited tomorrow when we will convene to hold our second meeting, and that a committee will be set up within the transition team to look at these matters and come up with proposals that are acceptable to both sides. But of course, we are hearing that in between the time that this commitment was made yesterday and these things are still going on. And we want to caution those who are involved, especially those who are doing things that violate the rules and regulations of the organizations they are working in, that violate Ghanaian law, that they will be held to account once the new government takes over. If we find that they have done anything irregular or contrary to Ghanaian law.
Right. Now, Felix, you talked this mass recruitment, as you describe it, seems to have partisan coloration. What leads you to that conclusion?
Because what would cause a government to rush to do these last-minute appointments beyond a desire, as it were, to rope in as many MPP members as possible, to offer them some security, if you like, just before they leave office? If it was a regular employment, regular recruitment, as we know, I don't think that there will be this hasty or indecent haste.
Were these not to fill vacancies that already exist or that have arisen as part of GRA's operations?
Come again, please.
Using the GRA example, were these not these 700 jobs? Were they not to fill vacancies that actually exist?
But first of all, we have to determine whether indeed there's that amount of vacancy in the GRA. Number two, even if there were vacancies, is due process being followed? How is it that people are being appointed when they have not applied for the jobs, when they have not been interviewed, when basic recruitment processes have not been undertaken? So even if vacancies existed for all these people, why is it being done irregularly? Why is it being done outside of the law? That immediately gives you indication that this is politically motivated and intended to rope in as many people as possible before they leave power. I don't think that it is proper. Not that there's any problem with employing someone who supports the MPP, but it must be done properly and regularly, and it must be done with the approval and consent of the incoming administration, so that we know where we stand exactly on all these matters just before we take power.
Now, at all material times, government owes suppliers, and Haptel is a supplier. What is it about this particular debt that has given the transition team reason to raise questions?
First of all, the timing of it is pretty suspicious. This government has been in power for close to 8 years, actually. In their latest iteration, which is 2020, they've been around for 4 years. And this Haptel thing has been around for quite some time. So why this particular time? Why the rush? Why the seeming irregularity? And given all the players that this government owes in that sector, I'm not sure that if they prioritize who to pick in terms of the cash waterfall mechanism, Haftel will be the biggest priority. And of course, we know of all manner of affiliations between people in Haftel and people in government. So it raises significant eyebrows.
What sort of affiliations?
Well, I will not get into that now, but in the fullness of time, we will arrive at that. But the point is this, that the amounts involved are significant, and they are likely to impact government finances in a significant way. I think that it is fair and proper that decisions like that are left for the incoming administration. It appears that somebody is trying to close the loop just before they leave power, and that gives rise to all manner of irregularities. So we are saying that even if such a payment was going to be initiated, it was fair and fitting that they bring in the incoming government. They open the books so that we see what is happening. As I speak to you, the incoming president, the president-elect, is giving daily national security briefings. So if something as sensitive as national security matters are opened up for the scrutiny of the incoming administration, why are financial matters being hit? Why are payments being hit? Why are recruitments being hit? For me, it marks of a certain lack of good faith. And the fact that the MPP itself is going against the very principle and precedent they established in 2016 also raises significant difficulties.
Are you saying
why were they minded to demand this in 2016 and yet are unwilling and unable to comply with same now?
Right. Are you saying that these recruitments and payments were being hidden from the transition team?
Yes, but we didn't know about it. We are only hearing of it because there are public-spirited individuals in these organizations that are drawing our attention to them.
Oh, so it's not something that came up in the meetings?
It is not something that was put before us in the meeting. We had to raise it because we had information that this is what was happening.
And then it was confirmed in the meeting?
And then, of course, they didn't deny it. And indeed, in many instances, there are documents that we have that support the position we have taken. So they are not deniable.
Right.
Except that there was an explanation, or an attempted explanation, that these processes started long ago. But at this material moment, elections have been held. And the incoming government is being bound to these recruitments and payments. So once the elections were over and transition teams have been formed, they should be brought or they should be apprised of all these developments so that decisions are made in a manner that will stand the test of time. Because the last thing we want is to take over power and then get ambushed with payments that we do not know about. We do not want to be surprised by payments and recruitments that we were unaware of in the immediate period before taking over. I don't think that it is fair to an incoming government for anybody to do that.
Right. Now, the transition team started working just yesterday. Is it fair to say that they were hiding this information? Do you not think it would have come up in the course of the work of the transition teams?
Yesterday, the incoming president received national security briefings. Today, he will receive SIP. The day after, he will receive SIP. So there's nothing like it is too early. What should have happened is that this government should have held on to these recruitments and payments and then bring it to the attention of the transition team that these are pending recruitments and payments. These are the amounts involved. These are the justifications. And then seek our buy-in before they proceed. So even if they were not raised yesterday, you would expect that no actions should have been taken on them until they were raised.
Is the Mahama transition team going to seek a halting of all recruitment and payments?
Of course, yesterday we demanded that all these recruitments be halted, all these payments be halted. The answer we got was that it will be revisited on Friday and that a committee will be set up to look into them. It is our belief that they would uphold their end of the deal. Like as I've indicated already elsewhere, you see, the incoming government will have the right to reverse or review these transactions insofar as they don't comply with Ghanaian law. And if you are going to recruit people without going through basic recruitment processes, without receiving applications from them, without interviewing them, without taking them through any recruitment process, surely it will be irregular. And any government would have the right to seek to reverse this and right it. So, and then also hold the officials who carried out these unlawful acts to account. So there is a remedy. But I think that where we have gotten to in our democratic journey, we should do things properly. You see, it is not everything that has to be legislated. I'm not one of those people who believes that every single problem has to be legislated upon. There are some things that people have to apply wisdom too. People have to apply sound judgment. You see, there's a reason why it is not everybody who gets into leadership position. Before you get into leadership, it is assumed that you have basic judgments around you. You are able to make determinations that make sense, that are in accordance with sound reasoning. But it does appear that where we are headed, we are probably going to have to legislate on everything. Maybe we have to put in our laws expressly that in the last quarter of an election year, no major decisions to be taken beyond statutory payments. In fact, I'm sure you are aware that even that 3-month budgetary period that is put in place in the final year of every government, that budget only covers statutory payments. That is debt servicing and payment of salaries and some other payments that have emergency implications. Beyond that, no discretionary payments are allowed, and it is for good reason. So that you don't bind the incoming administration with things that they don't know about. The same principle must apply to all other government business. Just bring it to the attention of the NDC side and make a case as to why there is a need to go ahead with this before government change. I don't think that this is too much to ask for, especially when the MPP itself has taken such a position in the recent past.
Right. Speaking of positions, one of the things that the presidency has announced is that this government's officials do not have the right to purchase vehicles and so forth as they are leaving office. That is something that when the first Mahama administration was coming to an end, that option existed for some of its officials. What do you think?
That is true. That is true. I'm sure you recall that in early 2017, you interviewed me just when we left office.
Yeah.
And I told you my personal position on this matter. I don't think that government officials, when they leave office, should take their vehicles along with them. It is not fair. It is not right. I'm happy that President Akufo-Addo has insisted that nobody should take their cars along. Indeed, President Mahama himself has stated that practice was going to come to an end in his tenure. So I think that we are aligned on that. There appears to be agreement and consensus on that between the outgoing administration and the incoming administration. It will not happen under President Mahama between now and 2028. So that is fair. President Mahama has also spoken about S-Gracia. We are yet to hear from the president on whether or not he will allow the members of his government to take S-Gracia. I would have hoped that he would waive it, just as President Mahama has promised he would do, so that we have a fresh beginning as a people, and that those who govern have greater sympathy and sensitivity towards those that they govern. So I am happy that this has happened, and it is a tradition that should continue henceforth.
What up, my people? I go by the name T-Rhyme, aka the stylish rapper, aka Control, aka Fire, aka what I say, BBB. You're watching Davcado TV. Keep it locked. Don't go nowhere.